Switzerland, a small mountainous country in the heart of Europe, has a history as rich and unique as its breathtaking landscapes. From ancient Celtic tribes and Roman conquests to medieval alliances and its famous policy of neutrality, Switzerland's journey is filled with dramatic turns and fascinating evolution. Understanding its past helps us grasp how this nation became a symbol of peace, democracy, and innovation in modern times. Whether you're curious about European history, international diplomacy, or just love stories of resilience and identity, the history of Switzerland offers something truly compelling. Dive in and discover the events that shaped one of the world's most admired nations. The history of Switzerland begins long before it became the well-organized, neutral state we know today. Thousands of years ago, its landscape of mountains, valleys, and lakes was home to various tribal communities, most notably the Celts, who played a foundational role in shaping the early cultural identity of the region. Among these Celtic tribes, the Helvetii are the most famous, and they are the ones from whom the Latin name for Switzerland, Confederatio Helvetica, is derived. The Helvetii originally lived in the area that is now modern-day Western Switzerland. Around 58 BC, under the pressure of Germanic invasions and dwindling resources, they attempted a mass migration to western France, then known as Gaul. This led to a significant event in both Swiss and Roman history, the Battle of Bibracte, where Julius Caesar, then a Roman general, decisively defeated the Helvetii. Rather than completely subjugating or eliminating them, Caesar ordered the Helvetii to return to their homeland, partly to serve as a buffer zone between Rome and the Germanic tribes across the Rhine. After the defeat of the Helvetii, the Romans expanded their presence in the region. They constructed military outposts, roads, towns, and trade centers, effectively integrating much of Switzerland into the Roman Empire. Some of the most notable Roman settlements included Aventicum modern-day Avenches, which served as the capital of Roman Helvetia, and Augusta Raurica, near present-day Basel, which became a vibrant hub of Roman culture and commerce. The influence of Rome brought significant changes to the Swiss region. Roman engineering introduced aqueducts, bridges, and extensive road networks that connected the region to the greater empire. These roads were not only essential for military movement, but also for trade, enabling the exchange of goods like wine, olive oil, and pottery, which enriched local economies. Latin, the language of Rome, also became dominant and laid the groundwork for Romance languages that are still spoken in parts of Switzerland today, especially Romansh and regional dialects in the south. Additionally, Roman religion, art, and architecture flourished, evidenced by temples, amphitheaters, mosaics, and public baths discovered through modern archaeological excavations. However, the Roman era in Switzerland wasn't free from conflict. The region was often on the edge of frontier skirmishes, particularly with Germanic tribes. These pressures became more intense as the Roman Empire began to weaken in the 3rd and 4th century CE. Eventually, by the 5th century, Rome had lost control over the Swiss territory. The fall of the Western Roman Empire led to the rise of Germanic groups, such as the Alemanni in the north and the Burgundians in the west, marking the beginning of the early medieval period in Swiss history. Despite the collapse of Roman political control, the legacy of Rome endured. Roman roads continued to be used for centuries. Roman law influenced Swiss legal traditions. Most importantly, the idea of structured governance and civic order planted seeds that would eventually blossom in Switzerland's later development as a confederation of cantons committed to mutual protection and cooperation. In summary, the Roman period was a transformative era for early Switzerland. From the Celtic Helvetii to the rise and fall of Roman authority, this era laid the cultural, linguistic, and infrastructural foundations for the Switzerland we know today. It's a vivid reminder that even in a land known for its neutrality and independence, the roots run deep into the conquests, migrations, and exchanges of ancient times. The founding of the old Swiss Confederacy in 1291 marks a defining moment in Switzerland's national identity, a pivotal chapter where unity, cooperation, and a shared desire for freedom laid the groundwork for an enduring federation. Long before it became a modern democratic state, Switzerland was a patchwork of isolated communities nestled within the Alps. What began as a local pact for mutual defense eventually grew into one of Europe's most respected and stable nations. At the close of the 13th century, the region we now call Switzerland was under the nominal control of the Holy Roman Empire. However, in practice, powerful feudal lords, particularly the Habsburgs, exerted increasing dominance over the Alpine valleys. The people of these remote mountain regions, mainly in the cantons of Uri, Schwyz, and Unterwalden, grew resentful of external interference, oppressive taxes, and threats to their local customs and freedoms. In response to this pressure, in August 1291, representatives from these three cantons met at Rutley Meadow overlooking Lake Lucerne. There, they made a solemn pact known as the Federal Charter of 1291 Bundesbrief, pledging to support one another in times of war, resolve disputes peacefully, and resist any unjust rule. This document is now considered Switzerland's founding constitution and a symbol of its long-standing commitment to liberty, neutrality, and self-governance. While this alliance was initially modest, its significance cannot be overstated. These cantons were small and militarily limited, but they demonstrated how unity among equals could effectively resist much larger powers. Over time, their example attracted neighboring regions facing similar challenges. Other cantons, including Lucerne, Zurich, and Bern, joined the Confederacy in the 14th century, expanding the alliance into a formidable regional force. One of the Confederacy's most legendary moments came with the Battle of Morgarten in 1315. In this battle, a smaller Swiss force ambushed and defeated the army of Leopold I of Austria, a powerful Habsburg duke using clever tactics in the narrow Morgarten Pass. The victory solidified the Confederacy's military reputation and reinforced the importance of collective defense and tactical ingenuity. More importantly, it showed that a united alliance of free communities could resist imperial power, laying the groundwork for Swiss independence. The Confederacy continued to grow in both strength and influence. Throughout the 14th and 15th centuries, it fought off numerous attempts by foreign rulers to reassert control. Key victories, such as at Sempach 1386 and Naples 1388, further entrenched Swiss confidence and cohesion. By the early 16th century, the Confederacy had expanded to 13 cantons, and although still loosely organized, it had become a respected and autonomous entity within Europe. One unique feature of the old Confederacy was its decentralized structure. Unlike monarchies or empires, it had no central ruler or capital. Decisions were made through regular assemblies and consensus, allowing diverse cantons with different languages, religions, and cultures to coexist. This model, though often inefficient, emphasized shared responsibility and local autonomy, principles that still define Switzerland's political system today. In essence, the old Swiss Confederacy wasn't just a military or political alliance. It was a profound experiment in grassroots democracy and unity. It demonstrated that strength doesn't always come from size or force, but from shared purpose, cooperation, and resilience. The struggle for independence was a defining era in Swiss history, a time when small Alpine communities stood against powerful dynasties to defend their freedom, autonomy, and identity. This period, spanning from the 13th to the 15th centuries, transformed the early Swiss Confederacy from a defensive pact into a determined and formidable force, capable of withstanding the might of the Habsburg Empire and influencing the political balance in Central Europe. After forming the old Swiss Confederacy in 1291, the cantons of Uri, Schwyz, and Unterwalden immediately found themselves at odds with the Habsburgs, one of the most powerful noble families in Europe. The Habsburgs had inherited vast territories in present day Switzerland, and saw the growing confederacy as a direct threat to their dominance. They sought to reassert control by appointing imperial bailiffs, enforcing feudal laws, and collecting taxes, moves that were deeply resented by the fiercely independent Swiss communities. This growing tension eventually erupted into open conflict. In 1315, the Confederates achieved their first major military victory in the Battle of Morgarten. Facing a larger, better-equipped Habsburg force, the Swiss ambushed them in a narrow mountain pass. Using their knowledge of the terrain, they launched a surprise attack with halberds and stones, routing the enemy in a stunning triumph. The victory was more than a tactical success. It was a psychological and symbolic breakthrough, proving that unity, strategy, and courage could overcome imperial might. The Morgarten victory encouraged the expansion of the Confederacy, with more cantons and allied regions joining over time. However, peace with the Habsburgs remained elusive. More battles followed, including another pivotal clash, the Battle of Sempach in 1386. This time, the Swiss fought Duke Leopold Roman III of Austria. Though heavily outnumbered, the Swiss again emerged victorious. One legend from this battle tells of Arnold von Winkelried, a Swiss soldier who sacrificed himself by throwing himself onto enemy spears to open a path for his comrades, a powerful symbol of collective sacrifice and national heroism. Throughout this era, the Swiss gained a reputation as disciplined, fierce warriors. Their infantry tactics, centered around tight pike formations and guerrilla-style ambushes, challenged the traditional dominance of mounted knights and reshaped military thinking in Europe. Swiss mercenaries became highly sought after by foreign powers in the following centuries due to their skill and bravery, but the struggle wasn't only fought on the battlefield. Swiss leaders also resisted foreign influence by strengthening their internal alliances and establishing treaties of mutual defense and neutrality. They navigated the complex feudal politics of the Holy Roman Empire, playing rival powers against each other and asserting their rights through diplomacy when necessary. By the late 15th century, the Swiss Confederacy had evolved into a loose but powerful alliance of 13 cantons. Though still technically part of the Holy Roman Empire, the Swiss had, in practice, secured de facto independence. Their greatest diplomatic achievement came after the Swabian War in 1499, a conflict against Emperor Maximilian I. The Swiss defeated imperial forces yet again, and the resulting Treaty of Basel effectively confirmed their autonomy, marking a turning point in their struggle. This hard-earned independence didn't come through conquest or colonization, but through resistance, cooperation, and an unyielding defense of local freedoms. The Confederacy proved that it could survive and thrive without submitting to larger empires. The lessons learned during these centuries would serve Switzerland well as it entered the modern era, resolute in its neutrality, but always ready to defend its sovereignty. This struggle for independence wasn't just about borders. It was about identity, values, and the right of people to govern themselves. That spirit still echoes in Swiss democracy and neutrality today. The Protestant Reformation was one of the most transformative events in European history, and Switzerland was at its very heart. Beginning in the early 16th century, this sweeping religious revolution didn't just challenge the authority of the Catholic Church. It reshaped political power, social structures, and cultural identity across the Swiss Confederacy. While it brought renewal and reform for many, it also introduced deep divisions that would shape Switzerland's internal dynamics for centuries. The Swiss Reformation was unique because it didn't originate from Rome or distant monarchs. It emerged from within, led by native scholars and preachers who were deeply embedded in their communities. The movement gained momentum in Zurich, where a brilliant and charismatic priest named Huldrych Zwingli began to preach reforms in 1519. Influenced by humanism and critical of corruption in the Catholic Church, Zwingli emphasized direct access to the Bible, rejected the veneration of saints, and advocated for a return to early Christian values. Zwingli's teachings quickly took hold in Zurich and spread to other urban cantons like Basel and Bern. Services were simplified, church decorations were removed, and the authority of the Pope was openly rejected. However, these radical shifts alarmed many in Switzerland's conservative and rural Catholic cantons, particularly in central and eastern Switzerland, where loyalty to the traditional church remained strong. This religious divergence created a deep fault line within the Confederacy. Unlike in some European countries where rulers dictated the religious orientation of their entire realm, Switzerland's structure allowed each canton to choose its own faith. As a result, the nation became a patchwork of Protestant and Catholic territories, with beliefs often changing dramatically from one region to the next. The tension didn't remain theological, it turned violent. In 1529, conflict nearly erupted in the First War of Kappel, but a fragile peace was negotiated. Just 2 years later, however, the fragile balance shattered. The Second War of Kappel, 1531, ended in tragedy for the Protestants when Zwingli himself was killed in battle. This war resulted in a Catholic military victory and reaffirmed the principle that each canton could determine its own religion, essentially freezing the religious map of Switzerland in place. Meanwhile, the southern city of Geneva became the center of a second wave of Swiss Protestantism, led by John Calvin, a French theologian who settled there in the 1530s. Calvin developed a more structured and rigorous form of Protestantism known as Calvinism, which emphasized predestination, personal discipline, and a strict moral code. Under his leadership, Geneva became a Protestant Rome, attracting reformers and exiles from all over Europe and exporting his ideas far beyond Swiss borders. Despite their influence, Protestants never fully united Switzerland. The religious divide became part of Swiss political life, influencing alliances, education, and even voting behavior. It also led to mistrust between cantons, with intercantonal wars flaring up occasionally until the mid-19th century. Yet, in a way, this division also shaped Switzerland's future for the better. The necessity of coexisting with opposing beliefs encouraged the development of compromise, federalism, and power sharing, core values that remain central to the Swiss political system today. Religious pluralism, though born in conflict, gradually became a source of resilience and maturity. By the end of the Reformation era, Switzerland was no longer just a land of farmers and warriors. It had become a crucial intellectual and theological hub, producing ideas that would spread across the globe and influence Protestant communities from Scotland to the American colonies. The Reformation may have split Switzerland along religious lines, but it also forced the country to develop mechanisms of coexistence, planting the seeds for the balanced, multi-faith democracy it is today. Switzerland's renowned policy of permanent neutrality didn't begin as a conscious national strategy. It was born from centuries of internal division, external threats, and a pressing need to survive amid Europe's constant wars. The Napoleonic era in the late 18th and early 19th centuries was the catalyst that transformed Switzerland from a loose confederation into a modern federal state and cemented its reputation as a neutral power. By the late 18th century, the Swiss Confederacy was still a decentralized alliance of cantons, each with its own laws, currencies, and religious practices. While this system preserved local autonomy, it also made Switzerland politically weak and vulnerable to outside manipulation. The rise of Napoleon Bonaparte and the revolutionary forces sweeping across Europe would soon test the Confederacy's stability like never before. In 1798, French revolutionary troops invaded Switzerland. France viewed Switzerland's fragmented political structure as outdated and ripe for reorganization. With little resistance, the French established the Helvetic Republic, a centralized state modeled after revolutionary France, abolishing cantonal sovereignty and traditional privileges. For many Swiss, especially the elite, this was a shock. While the Helvetic Republic introduced progressive ideas, such as legal equality, abolition of serfdom, and standardization of laws, it also sparked deep resentment. Rural and conservative populations opposed the loss of local control, and violent uprisings broke out across the country. The Helvetic Republic lasted only until 1803, when Napoleon, seeing the instability it caused, issued the Act of Mediation. This compromise restored much of the cantonal autonomy while maintaining a unified Swiss structure under French influence. Though the Swiss were no longer fully sovereign, they regained internal balance, and Napoleon used Switzerland as a buffer zone in his wider European campaigns. However, the most crucial legacy of the Napoleonic period came after his fall. At the Congress of Vienna in 1815, European powers redrew the map of Europe to ensure long-term peace after Napoleon's defeat. The Congress officially recognized Swiss neutrality and guaranteed its independence. This was a turning point. Switzerland was no longer just de facto neutral. It was now legally and diplomatically recognized as a permanently neutral state by Europe's great powers. This recognition was not only strategic for Switzerland, but also for Europe. The major powers saw value in having a politically neutral zone in Central Europe, one that could serve as a buffer between warring empires and host diplomatic activity. Switzerland's mountainous terrain and lack of expansionist ambitions made it a natural candidate. For the Swiss themselves, neutrality became more than a diplomatic position. It became a part of their national identity. Avoiding entanglement in European wars allowed Switzerland to focus on internal development, economic modernization, and political reform. Importantly, neutrality didn't mean passivity. The Swiss maintained a policy of armed neutrality, meaning they were prepared to defend their borders if attacked, but would not take part in foreign conflicts. This commitment to neutrality would pay off in the centuries to follow. Switzerland stayed out of both World War I and World War II, even while surrounded by Axis and Allied powers. Its neutral status also allowed it to become the home of the Red Cross, founded in 1863, and later a host for countless international organizations, including many United Nations agencies. In summary, the Napoleonic era and the international diplomacy of the early 19th century were instrumental in transforming Switzerland from a fragmented confederation into a unified, respected, and internationally neutral state. What began as a strategy for survival evolved into a defining national principle, one that gave Switzerland a unique and admired place on the global stage. Switzerland's neutrality isn't a relic of the past. It's a living policy shaped by war, revolution, and diplomacy, and it remains central to its role in the modern world. The 19th and 20th centuries brought profound change to Switzerland, transforming it from a loosely aligned group of cantons into a modern federal state with a powerful global presence. Through democratic reform, economic innovation, and a sustained commitment to neutrality, Switzerland evolved into one of the world's most admired and influential nations, despite its small size and lack of colonial ambitions. The turning point came in 1848, following a brief but significant internal conflict known as the Sonderbund War. This was a short civil war sparked by tensions between Catholic conservative cantons and liberal Protestant ones, mostly concerning the role of religion in politics and national unity. The liberal forces won, and in the aftermath, Switzerland adopted a new federal constitution. This constitution restructured the country into a true federal state, centralizing certain powers like defense and foreign policy while preserving cantonal autonomy. The 1848 Constitution is often referred to as Switzerland's democratic foundation. It created a bicameral parliament, introduced civil liberties, and laid the groundwork for one of the earliest modern democracies in Europe. The system was further reformed in 1874, expanding direct democracy by allowing citizens to propose and vote on laws and constitutional amendments, a hallmark of Swiss governance today. Economically, Switzerland grew rapidly during the Industrial Revolution. It lacked natural resources like coal or oil, but compensated with technological innovation, a skilled workforce, and political stability. Key industries such as banking, pharmaceuticals, precision instruments like watches, and food hello, Swiss chocolate and Nestle turned Switzerland into an economic powerhouse. Its strategic neutrality attracted investors, and its world-renowned banking sector flourished in the 20th century. Despite being in the heart of Europe, Switzerland remained neutral in both World War I and World War II. While its neutrality was tested, especially during World War II, Switzerland successfully avoided invasion by balancing diplomacy with preparedness and geographical defense advantages. After the war, Switzerland emerged as a symbol of peace and humanitarianism. In the post-war period, Switzerland became a hub for international diplomacy and humanitarian efforts. Geneva, in particular, turned into a center for global organizations. It is the birthplace of the International Committee of the Red Cross ICRC and hosts the United Nations office at Geneva, the World Health Organization, WHO, the World Trade Organization, WTO, and many others. Its neutral status, combined with high security, efficiency, and infrastructure, made it an ideal place for resolving international disputes and hosting summits. Switzerland has also maintained a unique role in global politics by staying outside major political and military alliances. It didn't join the United Nations until 2002 after a national referendum and is not a member of the European Union, although it has close economic ties via bilateral agreements. This independent stance allows Switzerland to engage with the world on its own terms while remaining deeply interconnected economically and culturally. Culturally, Switzerland stands out for its multilingual, multicultural identity. It has 4 official languages, German, French, Italian, and Romansh, and embraces a pluralistic society. Each canton retains its own traditions, policies, and even educational systems, making Swiss federalism one of the most locally empowered in the world. Today, Switzerland consistently ranks at the top of global indexes in areas such as quality of life, innovation, education, and governance. Its citizens enjoy high levels of trust in government, low crime rates, and some of the most direct political participation rights on the planet. From a confederation of mountain valleys to a leader in global diplomacy and innovation, modern Switzerland is a testament to the power of unity, neutrality, and democracy. Its journey offers a compelling model for small nations with big influence on the world stage.